If you've ever heard the term mastermind and you want to know what it is, or you want to know, what can a mastermind do for you, tune in and find out, and I'll explain it.
You are listening to the Prosper Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosper Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. So, if you're paying attention, if you're at all involved in like lawyer growth seminars or lawyer marketing, or to some extent lawyer coaching programs and things like that, all of this stuff has kind of grown up over the last several years. And if you're paying attention to it, it seems like it's everywhere. And some of the coaches were joking, saying, you have coaching coaches that are coaches and all this stuff. And so it seems like the market is saturated, like all of a sudden all these people have gotten into coaching. But if you really look at it, there's 1.3 million lawyers in the country. There's probably 40 to 50,000 criminal defense lawyers, and there are a handful of coaches, even though it seems like there are a lot of them. And a lot of these coaching programs, like a huge coaching program, might have 600 members. Most coaching programs, a lot of coaches coach one-on-one, so they only have a handful of people they help. If you look at the law firm growth summits and seminars that a lot of these really great coaching companies and marketing companies, and a lot of these companies are marketing companies, they put these on, and they may have 400 or 500 attendees. A huge one might have more. Maybe somebody has 1,000. I'm not sure about that, but it's possible. But usually it's in that 400 to 500 range, because unless you go into a huge venue like a Tony Robbins or something like that, where you're almost like in a coliseum or stadium kind of thing, the hotels, a lot of hotels, they can't go over 400 or 500, and so you have to find a bigger convention style space. So even if you look at that, then what happens is you have, if you're like me, a lot of lawyers that go to these things, they go to more than one. So they're really not impacting that many people. How many people are actively being taught and coached and getting help with marketing and sales and growing their law firm and things like that? It's probably not more than a couple of thousand. So out of 1.3 million lawyers, a couple of thousand, that's a small percentage of it. And I know that 1.3 million lawyers, a lot of those lawyers, work in government service. Some of them are judges and that sort of thing. But there's a large number of lawyers that are in private practice. But also a lot of lawyers work for big firms. So if you're an associate in a big firm, you don't have to worry about where the business comes from. You don't have to worry about is your networking to bring in clients, is that working? You don't have to worry about ethical rules of marketing. You don't have to worry about marketing budgets. You don't have to worry about creating content. You don't have to worry about social media. You've got a job which is safe and secure. Now, if you're on a partnership track, relationships will matter to you, and you could benefit probably maybe from some training in terms of how to network and what to say, because there are specific techniques for networking. For example, if you just go talk to people and talk about yourself, that's really not effective networking. Networking, and there's an acronym called FORM, which is what do you talk about with somebody? And there are people that can teach you how to walk into a room without feeling awkward, who to go talk to, how to spot people that are influencers in the room, and how to handle that versus just going in there and walking over the bar and getting a beer and standing in the corner and hoping you see a friend. That's not really networking. And so part of the technique for networking that I've learned, which is easy to remember and it's very effective, is FORM, and it's an acronym. So FORM, which stands for family, occupation, recreation, and mission, which everybody has that. Everybody, has some family, usually. They have an occupation. They have some recreation. There's something that they love to do. And then they have a mission in life. Most of us have some kind of mission that we would talk about, some cause we support or something we feel strongly about. So other than maybe learning that sort of thing so that you're able to go and bring in business to your law firm, there's some people in those firms, they don't need coaching. They don't need a mastermind. They need to keep doing what they're doing. But there are still hundreds of thousands of lawyers, people that are in private practice, people that are solos or they're in small law firms, and they're not getting the training, they're not getting the coaching, and so they can benefit from it. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably in the know. You're somebody who is aware. You've probably listened to other podcasts. You've probably maybe been to some trainings. You're aware that this is available and something that you can get into, which will help you grow your law firm. So in terms of the coaching program and the mastermind, the term mastermind, I think, was first used by Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, because he talked about how, I think it was Rockefeller and Henry Ford and Thomas Edison and different people, they knew each other, and they would meet, and they would get in the same room, and they would exchange ideas and talk about things. And Napoleon Hill said that when a group of people that are like-minded and growth-oriented and people who want to do something get in a room and they talk about their aspirations and the things that they're trying to do and problems that they've solved, that it creates a mastermind. It's a mastermind effect, which is it has an energy and a result that's bigger than just one person thinking and doing, because all the brain power and energy comes together, which makes something kind of spectacular, really. And if you've ever been in a mastermind, then you've had that effect, and you understand that you're getting good ideas and good feedback from different people who are coming at it from a little different perspective, or they've had a different experience, or they've had more experience in solving that kind of problem. And so it's an extraordinary thing, and I belong to a number of masterminds. Now, there maybe isn't like a true mastermind definition. Like, I have a true mastermind definition, and I see other things that are out there, and they're not bad. In fact, I think they're good, but in my mind, it's not a mastermind. Just because somebody calls it a mastermind doesn't make it a mastermind. Now, it may be a mastermind to them, and we're talking about definitions, but I have very specific criteria for what is a mastermind. And one of those things is that a mastermind has a leader or a facilitator. But this is a roundtable discussion. It's not a situation where the leader is speaking from a stage and presenting information like in a seminar or like in school where you're sitting there taking notes. The mastermind facilitator is seated at the round table with you, and they're guiding the meeting. So this is, the facilitator is the key, and the facilitator is not there. The facilitator is not there to impress anybody. The facilitator is not there to try to get somebody to sign up for something. The facilitator there is to make sure that people follow the basic guidelines of Mastermind, and in some respects, quiet the talkers. Because if you have a room where one person or maybe two people hog up all the oxygen and they talk before other people, then it's not as good of an experience, because you have a lot of people that they have something to add, but they're polite and they're not going to get in there, and fight for airtime. They're not going to get in there and fight to get their ideas heard. And so when they don't do that, the group doesn't get the benefit of what they need to say. And the one of the rules for a good mastermind, at least in my view, is the 1-2 rule, which is you're seated around a table, and whether you go in a order or not, because it's hard to go in order because ideas come to people, and so they give them when they come, and they come in different intervals. So it's hard to sit there and say, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? It needs to be more organic than that. But the rule is that nobody speaks twice until everyone's spoken once. So in that situation, a good facilitator who's observed everybody that's talking, let's say you got 9 people in the room and it was a good discussion, but before this person starts talking again for the second or third time, a good facilitator would look at this person, Jim or Amy or whatever, and say, what do you think? And then get everybody else in the conversation so that there's a benefit to everyone. The other thing that's important is that it has to be confidential. There has to be basically a non-disclosure agreement. Some of my very close confidants, a friend of mine who owns a big law firm and owns some other businesses, and another good friend of mine who owns a coaching company, they tell me things like intricate details of their business. And the rule is that whatever we talk about, I can't talk about. And so that's the non-disclosure. And in a mastermind, it has to be that way. It has to be confidential. People are talking about very personal things, sometimes struggles, sometimes numbers, sometimes financing, sometimes personnel issues. So it needs to be confidential. You can't go to a group of lawyers and meet and bare your soul and then see it on social media or hear everybody's talking about you. If you don't have that trust and confidentiality, it won't work, because you can't really talk about anything that's real. The other thing that is also crucial is your geographic business territory where you do business has to be exclusive. In other words, I'm not going to do a mastermind where I've got 3 criminal defense lawyers in the same town. They can't be in the same room together. Whether they think they're competitors or not, they're in the same space. And even if you have like an idea of abundance and the rising tide raises all ships and all of that, which I'm not saying that's not true, it has to be exclusive. There are instances where I've been in rooms with people that I was asked a question. It's like, well, we're not going to put you 2 in this thing together. And I go, no, he or she's fine. I tell them everything. They're very close. I trust them. I'm not worried about it. But the starting point is that it's just the one. Okay, if I got a criminal defense lawyer in Miami, I'm not going to let another criminal defense lawyer in that mastermind. Now, there may be another mastermind he or she can go to, but they can't get in there because it has to be a sharing and not something where somebody's going to take your idea and then they're going to go, work it against you and quote, steal your clients or something like that. I know there's some scarcity mindset in that, but still I firmly believe to get people to open up, you have to have your territory, like a sales territory, has to be protected, and there can only be one person there. The other thing, too, is you have to have a qualified room. In other words, everybody has to be at a level where they can help each other. When I was first signing up for a mastermind, and I'd ask the facilitator, because they had different levels. I think there were people under $1 million, and then people under $3 million in revenue, and then over $10 million. And so the way I do everything is I just want to go ahead and go leap straight to the top. So I said, well, just, put me in the 8-figure club. I want to be in the 8-figure club. I don't care that it costs more. And he said, no, Greg, you can't be in the 8-figure club. And I said, why not? He goes, because it won't help you. Because there's this whole space that you haven't gone through yet to get where they are. And so the stuff they're talking about is not going to help you. You don't understand what they did. And so you have to be down here. You have to be in your level. And so there needs to be some, matching up like that. And that's why if you sign up to be in a mastermind, you have to go through a short interview, because the facilitator has to have certain information about you. One is that you'll honor the confidentiality. The other one is that you're not in that geographic market. And the other thing is just where you are, like how many employees do you have, how many practice areas do you have, how many locations do you have, and what's the general range of your revenues, because that's going to place you in a certain group which you'll get the most help. The other thing, too, is the hot seat and the share. The hot seat is something that you may have heard, and the hot seat is when the focus is on you. In other words, it's your time. You've got an hour or 50 minutes or more than an hour, whatever the set time is, and that's where you get up there and you explain the problem you're having, and other people analyze that and offer you suggestions and maybe even call you out if you're not doing something. I think that's why they call it the hot seat. Some masterminds, they call it your ask, which I like. I really like ask better. And I've been in some masterminds, which really for me was kind of a disaster. And things I've learned now, understand that, one, there wasn't really defined confidentiality in the room, but the main problem with that mastermind and why it did not help is because the people in the room with me couldn't help me, because they were all at all different levels in different practice areas, and they really had no knowledge. I mean, they were well-intended, but it was no different than just talking to people at a coffee shop. They really weren't qualified. The room wasn't qualified. And it was really, when I look back at it, it was really, I felt good about myself because I went and spent 2 days. I was working on my business. But when I look back at it, that mastermind was not well constructed, and it was really kind of a disaster. I have a tape of it, and sometimes I go back and look at it because it's a good example of what not to do. Now, the other thing is the people are in the room not just to benefit, but they're also there to give information. And so they're there to share successes they've had, successes and failures. And so it's very important that everybody share that. And in some masterminds, there's a share part and a hot seat part. And some they kind of put it together. But that doesn't really matter. But everybody has to be willing to share the benefit of their knowledge and experience. The other thing, too, and this is a big one, too, and this is do you do a mastermind looking at a computer screen in your office, or do you get in a car or an airplane and go somewhere? To me, it needs to be live in person. It needs to be immersive for several reasons. One is that it's more impactful for me to be around people. It's more impactful for me to talk to people, look people in the eye. It's easier for 2 or 3 people to be in a conversation live and in person than on a screen. The other thing is there tends to be discussions and exchanges of ideas in the downtime. And I understand, like, they've got these Zoom events and things where you can go off into a room, internet room or something, and that's good. And look, I do things by Zoom all the time, and it has a place, and I like it. But if you're in your office, or you're in your house and you're in your town, this environment has a huge effect on you. And so everything that you think everything that you believe is reinforced in your environment. And you're comfortable in that environment, and it doesn't suffocate you necessarily, but you're kind of like in this cocoon of what's believable. And so when you leave that environment and you go to a new space, it's different. Okay, if you go to another town, to a hotel, and especially if it's a nice hotel, your environment changed. It's almost like you have a white piece of paper that you're going to write on. It's like you've cleared the slate by going to another place. So the environment is huge, and it makes a huge difference because it opens you up to ideas and opens you up to the possibility of change, because there's a physical change. You've proved yourself and your subconscious that you can go from here to there. And if you're staying in a nice space, or it's a luxurious place or something like that, you told your subconscious mind, you can go from this place, which is kind of icky, over here to this place, which is better, more luxurious, more refined, more open. So the physical space of transferring to another physical space, I think, is huge. I think it's big. And you get your mind open to learn, and you get yourself in a state of immersion. The other thing is that I said that people have to follow the rules, but there can't be any assholes, okay? You can't. Some people just have such a personality type, they're antagonistic, or they won't shut up or something like that. You got to get those people out of there. You heard the term like one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. It's true, because the facilitator's job is to either get those people under control or get them out of there. Now, maybe there's a place for those people somewhere. I hope there's a place for everybody, but you really just can't tolerate that sort of thing. So that's Greg McCollum's definition of a successful mastermind. That's the way we do mastermind. We think that is the optimal way to do that. And so, and there's a track record of people who do this, and not just with Prosper at Law, but with other companies, that there's empirical evidence that people that do it this way go further faster. So that's the mastermind. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at Prosper at Law. You can always schedule a call, which means set up a Zoom meeting. Just go to prosperatlaw.com. That's all for now. Thanks for listening.
If you want to know more, go to prosperatlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.